You're big 10 bales, 12 bales to the acre crop of silage. And that's a wonderful thing to have and to feed cows all day. But if you did that 3 times, you still get 12 bales to the acre. Because the goal is a number of bales or a number of tons. That buffer is there of 80 DMD silage at probably 25% dry matter plus. So they're getting good stuff, and it's kind of a bit of summer in the springtime, if you know what I mean.
It was once said to me by a man that this farming is all about silage. You're no sooner finished feeding it than you're trying to gather it again. With the fine weather and excellent growth, silage season is cranking into gear. So today I've asked Paul Hyland, dairy farmer in Ballacolla, County Laois, about the approach that they take on their farm to have quality silage without compromising on the quantity of silage. And I started by asking Paul to just outline briefly the farming operation that he runs with his brother David.
My brother David and I were farming here with our families, dairy farming here in Ballacolla, and we've branched out in the last couple of years, maybe extended a bit past the Ballacolla area, but it's still very much, we're very much on the tools, still the two of us, and manage it, and we have a brilliant team here with us, so that actually makes it a little bit easier organising things, and we have a couple of key people that really help us bring it along. And I suppose we're milking on 5 units now, with an additional one this year. So I suppose that brings its own challenges, and it doesn't keep us awake at night yet, but it certainly gets us up in the morning, if you know what I mean. So that's where we are, you know.
Yeah, very good. So you mentioned it there, it brings its own challenges in terms of the operation, but what I've asked you to come on to talk to me about today is about silage quality. And I suppose maybe people that might be following or be watching you on Twitter there will see that the boys, your own lads and David's lads, would often be at silage and slurry and so forth, and drawing it over to here and drawing it to there, and you're always out with the whip cracking and to get them up and going and away. But just the planning that goes into it now, like, so some people will say maybe it's easier for you given the scale of the operation that you're kind of trying to plan this rather than an individual trying to do it, but there is a lot of planning goes into it. So we've nutrient management to keep silage right, reseeding, all of these things, and the actual cutting date then, and the type of stuff that you're looking to cut. So I suppose we'll start with the type of stuff first.
Yeah, well, David's actually in charge of that. My brother David looks after all of that.
So
right?
I should be talking to him. So
I have to provide. It's our job to provide it for him, but he looks after the cutting and he takes care of. He's responsible for all of that. David is the ultimate cow man, right? The ultimate cow manager, right? But I suppose his golf is mowing silage. It's the only tractor job he does, and he just loves it. I don't know how he could possibly like it, but he likes that. So he takes charge of all that end of stuff. So I suppose what we'd be aiming to do here is, look, there's a requirement here. There's a large number of cows here, right? So there's a requirement for a lot of feed at the shoulders, at the back end of the year, in the spring, but also there's always the danger here, particularly in this area. And anyone who drives down the motorway through this area or Durrow, that area, will realize that we can get very dry very, very quickly. So there's a requirement generally, nearly annually, in July for some feed. Now, some years we get away with it, some years we don't. So to answer your question on what we require, our goal would be, we don't always achieve it, and sometimes we get away with it, sometimes we don't get away with it. Our goal would be to have 2 bales of silage per milking cow in the autumn, and have 2 bales of silage per milking cow in the spring. So, like, not every cow needs 2 bales in the autumn, not every cow needs 2 bales in the spring. They probably all need them in the autumn, they don't need them in the spring. And we would also try and have on the farm there, a provision there of maybe half a bale certainly of silage per cow for July. Now, if you don't require it, Stuart, it's well and good. You have it in the bank. Old hay is old gold, they say. You know what I mean?
Correct, yeah.
So we would have dedicated areas for kind of a 4-cut system, if you understand me, and it's purely bales. There's nothing goes into none of this high quality stuff goes into the pit. The other good silage that we'll be making for dry cows, that's all pitted, comes off faraway blocks, or if we have enough silage in stock, we'll lock up some of the ground that we're baling and just give it a good 6 weeks and then grow from there. That's what we do.
That's an interesting take though, Paul. Like, I mean, the 2 bales in the springtime is something that lots of people will be familiar with. The perception is that the dry farms don't necessarily need that. But your experience is obviously that you need to have it available to you, even if you don't use it.
The first week or two, you're grazing. Jeepers, that's grand now. That's grand and handy. They're grazing very little ground. But once they start to calve, the urge is to get them out of the shed and get them out and get them up and running. And unless you have a ranch altogether, you are not going to be able to provide enough grass for those cows to feed them on grass only for the spring. They're calving too quick now. And we just find that it's also, you know exactly what you're giving them every day. If you know what I mean, it's a buffer feed is what they're getting. They're not getting a huge amount of it, but that buffer is there of 80 DMD silage at probably 25% dry matter plus. So you know they're getting good stuff, and it's a kind of a bit of summer in the springtime, if you know what I mean. And that's what we're looking for, if you understand me.
Yeah. So I suppose, what way do you look at it? So, in terms of trying to actually land that in front of them, what type of cover are you talking about? Is there a particular date that you're trying to cut at, or what way do you kind of structure it in order to make sure that you have as much of that as possible?
All sides are going to get this fertilizer as early as you can in the year, sometime in March or whenever you get to do it. You know what I mean? Depending on the year, but that stuff would only get, would say, 50 or 48. It would get one bag of urea. Okay. Now it would have got its slurry, obviously, and it would be, of course, because of soil sampling and that, the P's and K's would be taken care of as well, or whatever. The P is very limited now, but I mean, K would certainly be a big requirement when you're constantly cutting grass, and slurry would be returned to it. So there wouldn't be a big dose of urea going out in any of this. So you'd be cutting at about 2,500. You know what I mean? Lovely soft grass with a nice green butt underneath. So you'd be looking at somewhere in the region of, I suppose, 4 to 5 bales to the acre. Generally 4.5 bales to the acre. Okay. We would try and take it off recently reseeded ground, i.e. in the last 5 or 6 years kind of reseeded. So you're always guaranteed to get that nice quality and plenty of it. That's what we'd be aiming for. Anything higher than that, anything that goes heavier than that, we would let it go. If we got a bout of bad weather where you couldn't go out and bale or something like that, or couldn't mow, just let it go. Top it up with urea and let it run on into main crop.
Okay. And then just in terms of the actual frequency of cutting, then, so you're actually trying to put that together very early on in the season, and then you're switching back into your dry cow silage, a term that, as we were talking about there a little while ago, neither of us like really, because all your silage needs to be good quality silage, or you need to be aspiring
we call it
to do
the big bulk,
bulk.
the big,
Yeah.
the main crop,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've said there about the fertilizer regime for the good quality stuff. What's the fertilizer regime for the bigger crop stuff then, and how long are you leaving it?
It'll be your traditional high nitrogen, loads of slurry, and drive as much of it out of the ground as you possibly can. If we had enough bales, everything goes into main crop.
Okay.
Once we have enough bales. But if we don't have enough bales, we will continuously cut that area every 4 weeks or so, every once a month, to try and build up the crop of bales, build up a stack of bales.
Okay.
That's how we would do it. Yeah. So it's a kind of, into a multi-cut system is what you're talking about there.
You said there about the reseeding element of it, so we'll come back to the main crop in a second. We'll focus on the reseeding element. So you're trying to cut off the young ground to get the high quality grass into the bale for the other periods of the year. So what's the reseeding policy in relation to the silage ground?
There's none actually being done this year. A lot of the ground that we are talking about now would have been reseeded because it was newly acquired ground in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's all new reseeds, and that's what we're focusing on. We will then maybe take out another block and reseed that possibly next year, and maybe we'll move that cutting to that area. We don't have a policy as such, Stuart, because we don't have to implement one, because it's kind of newish ground that has come in that is all reseeded. So that's it's not in the planning at the moment, if you understand me.
We'll say, have you any thoughts on maybe where you will go into the future with it now? Obviously, as those swards get older, and trying to combine both getting that quality silage, but also getting back young grass that you're going to be able to use.
No, well, actually, I tell a lie. There is a section that was done last September. We would reseed in the autumn to have it ready. So what we did with that particular piece of ground, again, we're living on dry land, so we there is a good bit of forgiveness here. It was seeded in August. We grazed it with weanlings for the winter. We got our slurry and our fertilizer out on it. Now that was baled at 6.5 bales to the acre yesterday, which would be generally way too heavy for what we were trying to achieve. But the fact that it was sown last September gave you that lovely forgiveness, because it was still beautiful soft grass. That was probably at a cover of 3,000 or more when it was being mowed, if you know what I mean. But it still had a green butt underneath. Do you understand me, Stuart?
Yeah, you're talking about no stem as such, yeah.
Exactly. Oh, no, Jesus, no. Yeah. And the reseeding program would be, it would always be done in the back end of the year for any ground that we're
Once you
going.
have your silage got, basically,
Correct,
like
correct, correct.
okay. And it kind of manages grass maybe a small bit on the outblocks then as well for you during
Well, it
that
does,
period of time.
as we were discussing earlier on, where our calves are going at the moment, that has all been baled now. So the requirement of all, doesn't matter how many calves you have at the moment, they don't require an awful lot at the minute.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, it can be a bit of a job to manage their requirement during the summer. So that would all have been taken off. So effectively, they'll be on aftergrass in 3 weeks' time, and they'll be on aftergrass for for a lot of the summer now. Which is a great way to get them. Great start for them as well. It's very clean as well.
Yes, of course, yeah, from a parasite point of view, yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose just coming back to the bulk stuff then that we are talking about there a second ago. So just explain that then we'll say like you said there earlier when we were discussing it, that you don't want the bulk of just stuff, like you want good silage no matter what it is really like.
Bulk is our friend too. Like, I mean, we do need to fill pits too. We do
Yeah.
need to fill pits, as everybody knows. Like, I mean, going out looking for silage, you'll always get silage, but to look for quality silage, that's why we take control of the quality ourselves, if you understand me. So
Yeah.
we will fill our pits, the usual, the end of May. We'll cut again then just before August weekend kind of thing. So it'll be a 2-cut system for that.
Yeah, okay.
2 cut system. And then we would also, if we have enough in our big clamps or big pits, we might take a 3rd cut off them of a lovely light crop of bales in the back end of the year as well.
Just to put more into the bank, as you said.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So basically, you're kind of maybe slightly different to the majority of people that might be aiming to cut their first cut in mid-May or whatever.
We'd have no desire. We'd have no desire to cut that early now. We wouldn't really be that early.
The only stuff that you'd be looking to cut at that stage is stuff that had gone too strong for baling, basically.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
if we had a piece on what we call the baling round, the close by stuff, and it had gone too far, the first chance we get, we put it in the pit, reset the field, and try and get bales off it a bit later on. That's what we would be doing. Because the goal is a number of bales or a number of tons. Like
you've a set number that you're targeting. Yeah. So then, just Paul, I suppose the final question is the planning of it all. Like, is it kind of, are you now into a system with it and it just works, or like, do you sit down at some stage and say, right, field above and Murphy's has to go or whatever?
We do pitches. We do. That's all. Took us a long time to. Like, we're not the only people doing this now, Stuart. Right, we saw other people at it. Like, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't like to be accused of being an innovator now or anything, but I mean, we do follow good policy, good practice that people are doing. But David and I, we would go around, we'd know our fields, we'd identify our fields at the beginning of the year that we want to do this with, or a field, there's a few weeds that we don't really want that one. Like, it's no different than grazing cows. And when we're doing our weekly walk here with the cows, we would be checking silage ground as well very regularly, and we could mow twice in the week, like we mowed twice this week.
Yeah,
we mowed twice this week because things are, as you know, like things are changing very fast here at the moment. Like, this is the time when it's hard to manage. This is the hardest time to manage grass in a time of plenty. You know what I mean? There's plenty of it around. You do need to take care of it, and it's really no different, Stuart. But there would be planning in it. Of course there would. We'd have areas identified. There's areas of silage ground of ours where we wouldn't cut bales off. The quality of the grass wouldn't be good enough. It just wouldn't be good enough to make what we want to make, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, very
or
good.
it could be too far away, or there's various.
There's planning in that.
Various things there, and if like our heifers, we've all our heifers grouped together, and we're contract rearing ourselves, if you understand me. We've a block of ground for them. There will be bales made there also. Now they're a bit far away from home. That's kind of what we use children for, to get them home. Well, young adults, I call them, not children. Just in case
they all have the
we're breaking the law.
So I suppose, Paul, what I'd just ask you to maybe finish up on is just trying to get the balance right between the bulk and the quality. Like, because I definitely get it from you that, and I fully understand where you're coming from in terms of the numbers that you're looking to feed, but it's all relative. It's all relative. Size of the farm doesn't matter. Trying to get the balance right between the quality of the silage that's in the yard, but having enough of it. How would you say to people out there that are maybe struggling with this kind of in terms of their own mindset of how to go about it? Like, we'll say people probably go there, as you said, around mid-March or whatever, or as early as they can, and they're inclined to fertilize everything for a full crop, whereas you're going with a lighter run there
All our silage run gets a split. I mean, everything gets a split of fertilizer. It doesn't get it all in one go.
Okay,
Right. I just from an insurance point of view, from a risk point of view, we would always go with a split application.
Yeah. Okay. So
Do
the
you
first
understand me,
one,
Stuart?
yeah. So
You
you're
have a bit
dividing
of
that. You have a bit of
flexibility. You
flexibility.
have a bit
Yeah.
of flexibility in there. Actually, my son looks after all of that. I have a son in college, but when he comes home, his job. He has the soil samples. He looks after all of any nutrients that are required, where it goes. He keeps a log of everything. He's, and it's a bit back to what you're saying is, I suppose, with scale here, we probably can maybe dedicate a bit more time to different jobs. We're not in the milking parlour every 5 minutes. We're not in the milking parlour twice a day, which is a big help, that you can organise things a little bit better, or maybe assign work a bit better. So, as I said, David looks after the bale, looking after all the silage and that kind of stuff. And, sometimes they wonder what I'm doing, but be talking to you most of the time. No, but you, back to your question. You see where I'm coming from, though. We wouldn't, while we have silage ground far away from home that is actual big cut silage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It would still get a split of urea first and a second split of urea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we find that works. Listen, there's loads of people do the other thing, but there is another thing. Just what we've learned over a period of time. You go out and you take your big. We just stick with bales for a minute. Your big 10 bales, 12 bales to the acre crop of silage. And that's a wonderful thing to have. And it'll feed cows all day. But if you did that 3 times, you still get 12 bales to the acre of it. You're paying per bale. You're paying per bale. But every bale is quality.
Yes.
Do you understand me? Whereas if you go the other way, you have 12 bales to the acre. It's questionable, but it's not as good a quality as it could possibly be, if you understand where I'm coming from.
No way in the world. Yeah, can't be.
And do you see where I'm coming from? Light and often we'd nearly prefer that than these big massive barn busting cuts of silage, if you know what I mean.
And just on that then, Paul, I suppose, and we'll leave this one be the last question. Would you maybe feel that you get better value out of the silage swards that you have than the fact that you're cutting them kind of little and often, as you described it there? Like, that you're not allowing these massive bulky crops come up so that they stay kind of cleaner for longer as well.
We don't like to see a big white butt under the silage.
Yeah, okay.
I just think, when you think about it, that's dead matter. Like, that has it takes a lot of energy. Takes a lot of nutrients and energy to send up shoots there again, in my view.
Yeah.
That would be my view. We like to see, and also we don't like to cut too low. Don't like to mow too low. Just to, when you're mowing that bit greener, you can stay up a little bit. It seems to come back a bit quicker. Now, I've no science behind that one. It's just that's something we've decided to do. We wouldn't be peeling the floor.
Yeah, okay.
You're trying to get it all right, Stuart, but you wouldn't be. Do you understand me? You kind of have to give it a chance.
Yeah, but sure, it's probably driven by the fact that you are cutting that greener butt, as you described it there earlier, that it does recover quicker, like.
Yeah, and I know we mow ourselves as well, which is, I know this is the dairy podcast, and we're not supposed to have any equipment at all, and we're supposed to be shoving yard brushes around the yard and getting contracts to do everything, but
shouldn't be using the yard brush either, though.
Well, my one's wore out. I can't. You have to buy a new one, Stuart. It's wore out.
Trigger's broom, huh?
Yeah. But yes, feels like that sometimes here. All right, but no, like, I know this is a bit off topic a bit, but we mow ourselves, and we find that that's something we won't change. And it's not to say no one was doing it. You're in control. You can go the day you want. Now, obviously, you have to give your contractor a bit of notice. You don't ring him, it's cut. You ring and say, listen, next Tuesday, are you available? Like, I'm thinking of mowing a bit of silage next. The weather looks good. Thinking of mowing. Have them lined up, and you can go up and do it yourself at your own pace and do a nice job on it. Not necessary, but it's something we do. We've done it for a long, long time.
That's super, Paul. I'm sure you're well on the way to gathering up the quality stuff for this year, on the road anyway.
We'll stay plugging away while there's a bit of growth. The weather is fantastic at the moment. Like, it's brilliant weather to make a bit of silage.
Absolutely. So look, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know I was kind of putting pressure on you in terms of time there to get this done today, so I really appreciate that, and we wish you the best for the summer, and talk to you again. Thanks, Stuart. Take care. That's all for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Paul Hyland for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. You can also email us on our dedicated Dairy Edge email address, dairyedge.podcast@teagasc.ie. I'm Stuart Childs, and join us next time for your Dairy Edge.